Hello again. Once upon a time, housing provision by local authorities was allocated according to the links which people had with the local area. This meant that if people had a family in a certain town or part of a city, then they would be given preference on the waiting list for a council house. Many local authorities had policies which explicitly gave people extra points according to what links they had to the area, say whether their parents lived there or their grandparents or they had a job there or kid at school, that sort of thing. This meant that family members could live near each other, and in the long run it was a benefit to society and reduced reliance on social services and so on. If a young married couple lived in a house in the street next to their parents, then the grandparents might, for instance, look after the kids during the day. When those parents grew old and infirm, then their family members, because they lived nearby, would keep an eye on them, doing shopping and so on. This is called community, and it used to be really popular at one time, as I dare say older viewers will remember. Instead of waiting for social workers to get involved, family members often lived near to each other and took care of each other's needs. I expect to some younger people this will sound like a utopian fantasy, but it's really not. It was common. The council knew this and encouraged it because it was to everybody's advantage. That's all stopped now, of course, because social housing is allocated not on one's connections with an area, but purely on need. This policy brings about the destruction of communities. Let's consider two cases. On the one hand is a young married couple with no home and a baby on the way, who are living in the home of one set of parents. Not an ideal situation, and the kind of thing which at one time would have been considered a priority case on the waiting list for a council house. But wait, what if a family of Afghan refugees are living in temporary accommodation and they have 4 or 5 children? They have no links at all with the area, perhaps they scarcely speak English, but because they have so many children, their need is perceived by officialdom to be greater than that of the couple living with one set of parents. It is accordingly the large Afghan family who will get the council house. A natural consequence of this change in emphasis is, of course, the fragmentation of communities, as adult children are compelled to move wherever they are able, very unlikely to be able to live round the corner from ageing parents anymore. Those ageing parents are more likely to end up living in a street where most of the neighbours don't speak English, and their family members have dispersed to live many miles away. Those of us who live in the real world know this, of course, and it almost looks like a policy devised to break up communities and make people feel isolated and lonely. It's now being combined with another strategy, which is to find some small town and for the Home Office to move in and block book a local hotel, which might be where everybody has their wedding reception locally, say, and then sack all the staff. This has the dual effect of increasing local unemployment and also preventing people from having a handy local place to get married or have a large celebration. This is what happened this summer in the Welsh town of Llanelli. The Strady Park Hotel was closed in June and 100 staff sacked at short notice. This was because the Home Office had taken over the place and intended to house 240 asylum-seekers there. The local feeling in the town is running high about this, though, because they've both lost the local amenity and seen loads of people made unemployed. On top of that, they face the prospect of having 240 young foreign men dumped on their doorstep. I do not say that all this is part of some master plan to disrupt our communities and break them up. But if somebody had set out on such a course of action, then some of the things being done would be the perfect way to achieve that end. It almost looks as though those in power do not like to see communities of British people based on the nuclear family, with people looking out for each other. Of course, such communities function far better when everybody speaks the same language, has a common set of values, and families which share roughly the same history. People in those circumstances often get on with their lives without looking to the authorities to do things for them. They just keep an eye on their neighbours and look after their families while also watching out for trouble in the area. This kind of independence from government and council busybodies is disturbing to those who rule us because it encourages folk to think they don't need official people poking their nose in and that ordinary people can take care of each other. Communities can function then with a very small town hall rather than a huge organisation with a chief executive paid more than the Prime Minister. Does anybody remember when the town hall was not such a big deal? When society worked well enough without a huge local authority with millions of staff? When the mayor was a ceremonial post and all he did was to open a local fete or award prizes at the school sports day? When did the post of mayor suddenly become so powerful? British society has changed dramatically in the last 40 or 50 years, and this has been to the benefit of ordinary people. I see no sign that folk are happier or more cheerful now than they used to be. Quite the opposite. Our communities have been wrecked. Many people are lonelier and less happy than ever before.